Good morning and welcome to your TVC News here in Clarence-Rockland. It's Friday the 12th of March. My name is Thomas Starting and thank you for joining us as we bring you your latest regional update. In your headlines this week, COVID laters for Prescott and Russell, the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena to host the Vaccination Centre, a local business is forced to close, and flood risks published by South Nation Conservation. Almost 13,000 vaccines have now been administered in the area by the Eastern Ontario Health Unit as their vaccine rollout plan continues. As the end of the first phase approaches, the EOHU is working alongside municipalities to identify locations for mass immunization centres, which will accommodate the start of the rollout for those outside of care. Residents of 80 years or older will likely start receiving their vaccines from the 15th of March, according to Dr. Paul Roumelotis, the medical officer at the EOHU. Vaccinations will take place locally at one of 6 mass immunisation centres, with the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena hosting the vaccination staff here in Clarence-Rockland, as the Director of Protective Services, Mr. Pierre Voisine, told us.
So Pierre Voisine, thank you very much for joining us today. We're here to talk about some very positive news, which is the announcement of vaccination centres coming up and popping up all over the area. Really, in the latest EOHU press conference, it was announced that 6 locations have been detected, have been put in place for mass immunisation centres, one of which is obviously in Clarence-Rockland. But we didn't need the latest press conference to discover that, as it was said in a Monday night's city council meeting. So, Mr. Voisine, if you could take us through you and your team. You've done a lot of work in picking the area. So what area did you pick, and what kind of work and study went into choosing it?
Yeah, so we've been planning for many months now in preparation, and we've been in constant contact with the health unit. And the challenge that they have right now is there's a lot of uncertainty with regards to vaccine supply. So you're building a whole number of different types of plans and approaches to deal with the various phases of vaccination, and it's a difficult situation that they're in. So we've been able to just focus in on small parts of that and looking at the best possible location for conducting this type of operation in our area. And there's a few criterias that go into measuring that, and there's actually guidance from Health Canada on how to build the vaccination site. So we've been studying all that information and kind of tabulating it all together. And I have to admit, it kind of came down to a notional kind of decision where it makes sense that it goes into a building that currently is not in use. So that's one factor, right? So if you look at other buildings, certainly there's other buildings that could have been determined to be just as good or better in terms of being able to manage that many people. We're expecting more than 1,000 people a day. So, but at the same time, there's other issues that come into play. So for example, if you look at CIH, the location is great. It's by the highway. It's got the capacity, but there are people using that arena. There's things going on there that would have to be canceled. The ice would have had to be taken out, and there's a cost to that, right? There's an operational cost to somebody not being able to generate revenue and perform what they perform in terms of their business mandate. So those are one elements. There's accessibility issues with certain of other buildings that we were looking at. People need to be able to get in and out fairly quickly. And those who have mobility restrictions have to be able to do just the same. So we looked at all those factors. We looked at power requirements. We looked at traffic flows. We looked at all kinds of things and determined that, yes, although it's a building that's slowly being decommissioned and actually wasn't in use, because we had to factor in the cost of getting that building fit up again. But it's still the best location and would be, it wouldn't intrude on any other business or activities going on. And it'll allow us to make the proper modifications to be able to flow as many people as we can through it.
As you say, there are some benefits there to using a building that's not currently in use, though obviously there are some small costs in terms of getting it back up to speed. Some of the counter arguments may be to it, and I think this was one that was briefly aired during the council meeting talk about it, was that I know it's provincial money and it's not, doesn't come from the city, but there's an investment going into getting the building ready and in shape for vaccinations. So the counter argument to that is that money worth investing in a building that's essentially being decommissioned, or is that money being invested in a way that allows you to sort of remove what you're putting money into to be able to then put it somewhere else further down the line?
Yeah, well, exactly. I'd like to be clear. Provincial money, municipal money, it's all our money, right? So we are going to manage that funding appropriately in every instance. So absolutely. I thought I was clear in my report to council, but perhaps it was misconstrued a little bit. So the investment that we're putting into the building, most of it is non-lasting. So we're going to, we're obviously going to clean the building up and put a little bit of paint in the lobby, but everything else that we're going to put into that building that's of any monetary significance can and will be used elsewhere. So for example, the big ticket item in that building is when you build an arena, you don't actually build an arena with the intent of heating the ice pad. So there's not enough heat in an arena in the area that we want people to congregate, or maybe congregate, it's not the right word, but to get the vaccines. So in order to do that, we need to install what we're calling temporary heat on the ice pad. It's not something that would normally be in an arena, but we need it for the needs of this activity. So what we did is we looked at the infrastructure needs elsewhere in the city, and we found that the city hall heating units are going to have to change in the next couple of years. So we went ahead and spec the same units. Therefore, once we're done, whether it's 2 weeks or 6 months at the arena, we'll be able to reuse those heating units at City Hall. So there will be very, very few dollars that will remain invested in the Jean-Marc Lalonde Arena in the end. So that my comment at the end to council was that, when council is faced with a decision on the future of that building in 6 months from now, it will be no different. The situation will be no different than it was 6 months ago.
Yeah, and I think you make a very good point there, which is whether it's municipal money or provincial money, at the end of the day, it all comes from our tax dollars. So very, very good to hear that it's being spent wisely. You alluded to it a little bit in your first answer, but did the EOHU, did the Eastern Ontario Health Unit reach out to you to ask and do this kind of proactive work to make sure that the arena was ready? Or is this something that sort of the city of Clarence-Rockland and you yourself took a little bit of initiative on?
It's a little bit of both. They approached the city and wanted to consult us in finding the appropriate location. And we, in our deliberations, found that, even though there's a little bit of investment that needs to be made in that building, it is the appropriate location. And of course, we've been communicating with them on the activities that we're undertaking to prep the building. But yeah, the municipality has a say in, in our recommendations in terms of the building, and clearly has to fit within the mandate that the health unit has. But yeah, we've kept them in the loop along the way here.
And casting our minds forward a couple of weeks then to the idea of this place being open, Dr. Paul was saying in the latest conference that the over 80-year-old category in phase 2 here could be beginning to receive their vaccine by mid-March, as soon as that. So is the building going to be ready by then? Is it very sort of gun-ho, get this building get ready very quickly?
Yeah, 100%. So in light of the fact that we planned early, we were able to take deliberate steps in preparation for council's decision to kind of give us the green light and go here. So absolutely, as early as the next day, our folks have been working on the building. It's going to be ready. We decided early, after a few meetings, including one with General Hillier, asking municipalities and cities to be, to partner up and make everything available for their health units. We took that very seriously, and we're doing that. So Dr. Paul has a massive task of delivering vaccines to all of the residents of his catchment area, and we're going to do a little bit of a part to make sure that he has a building to do that in our municipality. So we will be ready.
And obviously there are health guidelines specifically towards these kind of things, but how is it going to work? I take it we're not going to see 50 to 100 people crammed on the street outside waiting for their vaccination. They're going to be appointment times and people come in. Are things spread out inside the building as well?
Right. So I can't speak to how the vaccination is going to happen. That's under the purview of the health unit, but they have announced that all vaccinations are going to be done by appointment. And that, again, that to me is just, the logical approach in light of the fact that we're asking people to stay away from each other in a certain sense. It doesn't make any sense to congregate to a building to get a vaccine. It's kind of counterintuitive. So I think the idea is to work from an appointment and a scheduling basis. Our job is to make sure that the building is fit up for easy access, flow, and everybody will be comfortable once they're inside and they're able to kind of go on their lives after they get their vaccine.
Fantastic. Well, Pierre, thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for the work that you and your team have put in to get this first mass immunization clinic set up here in Rockland. I'm sure many people are going to be glad to see it.
No problem. Thank you.
Cheers.
With only 6 vaccination centres opening across the EOHU region, questions were asked the other night as to why it would seem that only buildings such as arenas were being looked at.
Like I said, we are going to be doing multiple settings for multiple people. I personally visited the arena myself with Mayor Clément last week, and we were shown different entrances that can come in, that we can bring people in who are handicapped and so on. So our we really need to remove all those things, and also some of our 80+ clinics are going to be done in other areas that are easier to be accessible to. So that's top of mind. And wherever we will do immunization clinics, again, the arenas like that are going to be reserved for mass immunization clinics, where we've done a lot of the vulnerable and elderly. But even that, the staff was kind enough to show us really places where we would come in from the side and so on. So we'll have that clearly marked. And it's not only for Cornwall. We have six sites that will be doing mass immunization clinics, and every site that we look at, we always look at accessibility. That is very important to us when we do a site visit and we selection and we set a site. The other thing I want to make clear to people is that the reason we're doing it in arenas, usually we do it we have done mass immunization clinics in high schools or big community centers and so on. The problem now is that as we ramp up to do mass immunization clinics where we have like 15 or 20 different state vaccinators vaccinating at the same time, we are quite limited now, because if we were to do we use the same gyms, for example, that we used for H1N1 and our previous clinics, and we have to distance each table by 6 feet and distance people waiting, after the vaccine by 6 feet. We're much more limited to the number of vaccinators and people that we can handle. So this is why we need big spaces. We need arenas. We need big halls that can accommodate that. In Hawkesbury, we're doing it at the big track and field area. We need big space so we can put in 15, 20 vaccinators at once. And also respecting the 6-foot distancing, but also at the same time making sure that this weekend I was there, the chairs were 6 feet apart, people waiting for vaccine after they got the vaccine, because you have to wait 15 minutes for observation. Whereas when we were doing them typically we'd have them in theater style. You have rows and rows of chairs. You can have multiple people waiting there. So that's the reason we need big places, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to put through as many people as we want. And our goal is to put as many people through the vaccine process on a daily basis as we can, and this in multiple settings. So that's why we wanted a big area, and we're not the only ones. All my colleagues across Ontario are using arenas and big venues for that reason.
Now, as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the first lockdown that started this global pandemic for us here locally, the numbers actually continue to stabilise, which is great news. In Prescott-Russell, we currently have 40 active cases, of which 14 are in Clarence-Rockland, which are some very similar daily trends that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. There are worries remaining, though, as to the new variants known as VOCs. To date, there have been 15 detected in the area, and Dr. Roumelotis has urged everyone once again to follow all the health measures as due to some outbreaks in certain areas, we could be heading towards the red zone, which would entail further restrictions. Dr. Roumelotis also confirmed that those receiving Pfizer and Moderna vaccines will have to wait a little longer now for their second shot, though there are some exceptions.
Moving forward, there will be more plans and more clinics being put forward. Like I said, it was hard for us to start planning clinics in terms of booking individuals where we didn't know how many vaccines we had per week. And now we're presuming that except for the retirement homes that we're going to go and finish next week, we're not going to be giving that we're going to have that 4-month interval between doses. So that's going to, I think in my mind, speed up things for first doses and at least allow us to, and the fact that we know 4 weeks in advance, it'll allow us to really start planning a more longer term and be able to give more of a plans, month to month plan moving forward. Obviously, our goal is to go into phase 2 and phase 2, again, one of the things that we've got today, we've got a memo from the ministry, and just to repeat to everybody, really is that the Ontario phase 2 vaccination rollout is expected sometime in April, and that's exactly coincidental with the time that we believe we'll have done most of phase 1 and moving into phase 2. Again, it depends on vaccine availability. We are contemplating receiving more vaccine in April. That's what we've been seeing. We're also contemplating receiving different types of vaccines moving forward in April. So again, that to us is very good news. And so the phase 2, just to remind everybody, will be for adults between, so it's a high risk. The phase 2 will be more for high risk again. Adults age 60 to 79, beginning from 75 and over, and going down 5-year increments. People who live and work in high-risk congregate settings, shelters, those type of things. Individuals with high-risk chronic medical conditions. People who live in hotspots and with high death rates, and certain workers who cannot work from home. So, they changed the name from essential workers to who cannot work from homes, which again, which includes first responders, education workers, food processing industries, and so on. We have a list of those that will be going forward.
With the warming weather this week, South Nation Conservation have issued a yellow warning over rapidly rising water levels in rivers across the region. This is due to the significant amount of snowpack that is expected to melt, changing the water flow as well as its levels. SNC have advised residents to stay away from rivers as the weather forecast may rapidly increase river flows and banks may become unstable and slippery. It is also vitally important, of course, to remind your children of all of these dangers. This comes also as a reminder to have a plan in place in case of an emergency. As the City of Clarence-Rockland has been pushing out recently, don't wait until the last minute to get prepared. We will be speaking to a representative from the Ottawa River authorities over the next couple of weeks to discuss this year's flooding risks and what people can do to make sure they're prepared. And a few months ago, here at TVC 22, we spoke to a local business owner who was struggling having opened her store at the start of the pandemic. Despite being a new business and in dire need of financial aid, she was falling through the cracks of the government aid schemes. And unfortunately, months later, the situation just hasn't improved. This week, I caught up with Jill Wright, owner of Heart's Content Consignments, as she is left with no option but to close her store here in Clarence-Rockland. Well, Jill Wright, thank you so much for being with us again today. We're catching up, having spoken a few months ago about the store you've opened in Rockland. So if you want to just tell the listeners what store you have opened, and then we'll sort of come into some of the changes that maybe have occurred over the last few months.
Yeah, of course. So the store is called Heart's Content Consignment. We are a ladies' consignment boutique, and we are operating in Rockland. It is essentially a store where we sell items for people. So people will bring us their clothing and accessories, and then we present them online and in the store. And once the item sells, the consignor gets paid.
It's a little bit, some people may forget what consignments really are, and it's a little bit the original eBay, isn't it? Where some people's things come in and say, you're creating that platform for people.
Yeah.
We obviously spoke a few months ago as some of the issues you were facing were a lack of financial support from any of like the government schemes,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
we did have a little conversation with MP Francis Drouin as well, and he was going to see if he could help you a little bit. How have things gone on that front? How have you been able to access any of the programs that have been available over the last couple of months?
No, nothing. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find any programs that we qualified for or any exceptions or anything like that. A lot of the programs still aren't eligible for new businesses, but some of the ones that are now allowing new businesses to apply, there's other eligibility criteria that will exclude us based on recent sales volumes and things like that. So yeah, it's tough. We're still caught in the middle of everything.
We're going to take a quick pause. Can we turn the radio off, please? Sorry,
I can definitely do that.
Yeah, can we turn? Sorry, I was sort of saying that to Zach, even though that's not
yes.
him to go turn it off. Sorry, Joe.
There we go.
I didn't hear it.
No, I was just thinking because if it picks up any music in the background, we'll get flagged for copyright and it will be taken down.
Oh, good.
That has happened to me. It just like you
That's
just don't really
crazy.
realize there's a song sort of playing in the background.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like this is TikTok by Kesha and it's under this copyright and therefore your video must come down.
Okay.
I hate this. So I'll lead straight into the second question and we'll put some cover shots over the top.
Perfect.
So as you're saying, you weren't meeting some of the financial criteria. There was specifically one that was set up over the course of the new year for aid in January and February, which is obviously a very quiet time for restaurants and commerces such as yourself. So how come you didn't actually qualify for that one, being a new business, and having been struggling for such a long time?
Yeah, and that was an interesting program because it was also intended to help with some of the costs when we were shut down. In Ontario, they had the shutdown as of December 26th. And so that program was really set up to help cover some of those costs. But I was eligible based on the criteria, which was really fantastic. And I got very excited and then received the sort of rejection email, which I'm super familiar with by this point. Essentially what it was for me was, because I didn't have year-over-year revenues to compare, they compared my last month's revenues. And for me, those last months were November and December. And I had higher sales in December than November, which is great because good for me. And it's holiday season. But that didn't really, in my view, have much to do with the suffering that would come in January and February due to the shutdown. So it seemed like there was a bit of a disconnect on the criteria versus what the money was meant to be supportive of.
Yeah, it just seems like such a continuous and repetitive narrative that we're hearing, that there's all these fine minor loopholes that people are just falling through some of these cracks at the moment, and it's disheartening to have to stand here and talk to you again about the fact that everything is sort of playing against you and falling through the cracks. We're stood in your store at the moment, but we might not be able to be stood here for very long, if I get that correct.
Yeah, you're right. We made the decision to pivot the business model, and so what that is going to mean for us is a fully digital presence, and we're going to shut down our storefront. So we're going to remain open till Saturday the 20th of March. We've got some great deals going on for any of those last-minute shoppers who do want to come in and try things on. And from that point, we'll be operating just online. So the website, which is up and running, and a fully functional e-commerce platform will continue to run. And then we'll continue our fun Facebook and Instagram programs and profiles that we've been using. People are having a lot of fun with us online. So.
Well, it's great to hear that you're at least able to continue keeping the business afloat to a certain extent, even if you can't have this storefront. I take it, being online, you must have a pretty snazzy website as well with a paywall and an e-commerce side of it. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So not all of our products yet, but all of our products will be online. You'll be able to shop by category, by size. You can search by style, by brand, all of those parameters. You can pay right on the website. All the major credit cards are accepted, debit as well. And then if somebody wants to do an e-transfer or something like that, let's say, I can certainly accommodate that. We're still honoring all of our gift cards, so they're not electronic, but anyone who has one can call us. And the website, it's really fantastic. And we also have a collaborations page on there. So it lists all of the community projects that we're doing, all the promotional fundraisers and events. And we're still going to be selling items from local vendors right on our website.
Fantastic. And one of the things that we have seen over the course of this pandemic is people wanting to get out of their houses and come to work. How are you facing this prospect of having to essentially move your work into your basement?
Well, it's currently my kids' space. So first of all, I'm a little bit daunted at having the cleanup done. But once that gets done, I think it'll be okay. I think having a dedicated space is what's most important. And I'm very fortunate to have a large enough space to be able to do that. It does mean I'll have to limit my consignment appointments for some time till I am able to figure out how much stuff I can really deal with in that space. But I think it'll be okay. Yeah.
Moving this to an online sphere and a website, are you seeing other potential possibilities therefore for the consignment store, maybe not just Rockland, and looking to provide these further afield?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be shifting our marketing focus to really target all of Ontario and eventually all of Canada as a really conscious marketing effort. We do offer Canada-wide shipping for $8.95, which is super reasonable. So I think that will be a huge point in helping us reach out of our current market. The power of the internet, right? You can sort of go far and wide, and so I think we'll take full advantage of that opportunity.
And do you see potentially, as vaccines come in and we're trying to cast our minds towards this light at the end of the tunnel, right, that is getting bigger for everybody with each passing day and each passing dose, do you see maybe a store coming back again further down the line, or do you think there's going to be a more of a cautious approach now, not knowing what the landscape's going to be?
Well, I've learned some lessons along the way, so certainly I will apply those when, hopefully, not if, hopefully when I'm able to reopen a storefront. I love this community and I would really love to be able to stay in Rockland and reopen. So we'll see what time brings, and I'm optimistic. But we do have to weather these next few months or year, or however long it takes for things to sort of return to some normalcy in the retail world before I'll venture into another lease contract. So.
Well, John, terribly sorry we have to be here and talk about something that's a little bit negative, but great to hear you putting on a positive spin towards it. And yeah, I really hope we can speak again in a few months' time as things are on the up and in a positive direction.
Absolutely. You'd be welcome in my basement anytime.
Thank you very much. All right, Jill, speak to you soon.
Thank you.
So as has been the message since the start of this pandemic, please do try and continue to support as many local businesses as you can. This is the end of this week's programme, so if you want to hear a little bit more from the interviews in this programme or our previous ones, you can watch a lot of them in a longer format on our YouTube channel. We're also actively looking for volunteers and civilian journalists, so if you're interested in taking up a hobby, then get in touch with us. We'd love to have you. And if you have a news story, then please do get in touch with me. You can reach me by nouvelle with an S at the end at tvc22.ca or by phone at 613-440-6037 extension number 4. Or of course you can find us on any of our social media channels. As always, have a lovely weekend, Clarence-Rockland. Please do stay safe, wait for your vaccine, and I will catch you next week. Goodbye.